Hello, welcome to the channel Why Stories. Enjoy watching.
A gypsy woman was arrested and placed in a cell with the most dangerous prisoners. She didn't know that her family had framed her for 150,000 pesos. When the head of the detention center was informed that the newcomer could read fortunes, he summoned her. And upon hearing her words, he was shocked. Dear friends, before we continue, please check if you're subscribed to our channel. Don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts on our story in the comments. Enjoy listening. 1984. Teodoro Luz never believed in fate. At 21, he worked honestly, fixing pipes, replacing faucets, dealing with rotten risers in tenement buildings where every square meter was worth its weight in gold. His hands were said to be golden by the neighbors, and his character as reliable as a pre-war cast iron pipe. That May Day they called him to Flores Street, number 17. An old tenement building temporarily hosting a Romani encampment. The landlady, Senora Clara, raced between rooms wailing. Teodoro, dear, help, we're ruined. These guests completely wrecked the plumbing. Water everywhere in the kitchen, the neighbors below are threatening to complain to the housing authority. Teodoro grabbed his tools and climbed to the third floor. Stepping across the threshold, he was hit by unfamiliar scents, aromatic herbs, cigarette smoke, something exotic and stirring. Voices drifted from the rooms, feminine and melodious, male voices rough but warm. The kitchen confronted him with a puddle around the stove and a sizzling tap. Teodoro squatted to take apart the fittings. He focused on the task when he heard behind him. Abuela, look, a kind man has come to fix the water. So young. He turned and froze. By the window sat two women, an elderly woman in a colorful kerchief, and a young girl. Oh God, how beautiful she was. Her olive skin seemed to have soaked up the southern sun, her black hair flowed over her shoulders, her dark, deep eyes holding some ancient wisdom. Estrella, don't distract the man, the old woman grumbled. I'm not distracting him, Abuela Rada. I'm just watching. The girl smiled, and Teodoro's heart skipped a beat. The elderly woman extended her hand. Show me your hand, son. I'll pay you for the work, and take a look at what your future holds. Oh no, Senora, Teodoro muttered shyly, but held out his hand. Estrella rose and stepped closer. Teodoro caught a light scent, lavender and something else elusive. Abuela, allow me, I'll take a look, she whispered quietly. The old woman glanced at her granddaughter in surprise, but nodded. Estrella took Teodoro's hand in her warm palms. The touch scorched, as though struck by electricity. Interesting, she whispered, tracing lines with her finger. Very interesting. What is it? Teodoro barely whispered. You will meet a woman who will change your entire life. For her love, you will be ready for anything. And her? She will leave her old world behind to build a new one with you. Their eyes met, and Teodoro understood she was talking about herself. 3 months of secret meetings. Teodoro came to the tenement under any pretext, fixing a faucet, checking a pipe. Estrella waited for him near the entrance or in a nearby park. They spoke about everything, the books she read in secret from her family, his work, their dreams. I don't want to wander all my life, she admitted one day as they sat on a bench. I want a house, a real home. I want children to go to school, not learn reading in scraps. And your family? They won't understand. I'm a traitor to them, Estrella sighed. But the heart is stronger than tradition, Teodoro. If you love, it's forever. When the encampment was ready to leave, Estrella stayed. Abuela Rada cried, cursed, but ultimately embraced her granddaughter. Be happy, child. But remember, you can always come back. They married in the small church of the Holy Trinity in winter 1987. The witnesses were Teodoro's co-workers and Senora Clara. Estrella wore a simple white dress she had sewn herself, but no one in the world was more beautiful. My lord, she whispered before the altar, grant us a long life and children. It took a long time for children to come. For 14 years Estrella prayed, visited monasteries, saw doctors. Then, when she had almost lost hope, something miraculous happened. In 2000, their daughter Milena was born, tiny, olive-skinned, with huge dark eyes. When the midwife placed her on her mother's breast, the baby didn't cry but gazed so seriously, as if she already understood everything. "Wise she will be," said Abuela, arriving at the christening. "Her eyes like those of my great-grandmother, the seer." Milena's childhood. The house on Bolivar Street, where they settled, became a special place. Teodoro added an extension, a workshop for his wife. Their Estrella accepted sewing orders, hosted people who came seeking advice and help. The sewing machine rattled from morning till evening. The scent of fabrics mixed with the aroma of herbs that Estrella dried in bunches near the ceiling, lavender for calm, St. John's wort for sickness, mint for clarity of mind. In the red corner hung an icon of the Virgin Mary. The family prayed before it every evening. Teodoro was baptized broadly, in the Russian style, Estrella quickly, in the Romani way, but they prayed to the same God. "Lord," whispered Estrella, holding little Milena in her arms, "grant my daughter a righteous path and true happiness." The neighbor children would tease, "Gypsy thief, where's your camp?" But Milena never cried or complained to her parents. She would lift her chin, just like Abuela taught her. "We're not worse than others, my little one. Just different. And in that lies our strength." At 8 years old, the first event happened. Neighbor Senora Zena lost a ring that had belonged to her late mother, simple, with a turquoise stone, but precious as a keepsake. She cried for a week, searched the whole apartment. Milena was playing in the yard when she walked up to Senora Zena. "Did you check the flour jar?" "What jar, child?" "The red one in the kitchen. The ring is there." At first, Senora Zena didn't believe her, but then ran home. Half an hour later, she returned in tears. The ring had indeed fallen into the jar while she was rolling out dough. "How did you know?" Estrella asked her daughter that evening. "I don't know, Mama. I just saw it. Like a dream while awake." Estrella crossed herself. "It's a gift, daughter. A gift from God. But remember, help people, and never take more than they offer from the heart. God sees everything." Abuela Rada visited every summer. She taught her granddaughter how to read palms, told her Romani fairy tales, and sang old songs. The gypsy rode the white road, seeking his fortune in a brave valley. "Remember this, Milena," she'd say when they sat in the garden under the orange tree. "We gypsies are used to being free. But freedom isn't just a road beneath your feet. It's choosing whom to love, whom to help, how to live. You'll choose your path, but always remember your roots." Milena absorbed every word. She learned to distinguish people by their voices, their gait, to understand what was behind a smile or tears. Youth and first steps. Milena excelled in school. Her favorite subjects were literature and social studies, places where one had to understand the human soul. Classmates treated her with respect, no longer teased her, and sometimes even came to her for advice. "Luz, you can tell fortunes, right?" asked Katerina Voronova once. "Tell me, does Damien love me or not?" "I don't really tell fortunes, Katia. I just sometimes see things," Milena replied. "As for Damien, he's a good guy, but love isn't on his mind right now. He's focused on getting into university." And indeed, a month later Damien told Katerina he had decided to focus on his studies. Milena enrolled in the university's psychology program. 5 years of specialist studies, it was long, but it was what she had always wanted. "Daughter, maybe look for something closer to home." Teodoro worried. "What do you need in that city?" "Papa, the best professors are there. I want to become a real psychologist and truly help people." In 2019, she moved into a dormitory. The room was tiny, 12 square meters for 2 people, but it was hers. At first, her roommate Anna eyed Milena's herbal brews and palmistry books warily, but then got used to them. "Do you really see the future?" she asked one late evening. "Not exactly the future. More like possibilities. What a person is heading toward by their actions. Milena earned a bit on the side by doing readings, charging a symbolic fee, whatever people felt like giving. Students came with questions about exams, love, career choices. Professors came with more serious issues. She helped find lost things, resolve relationships, and make important decisions. Money isn't the main thing, she repeated her mother's words. What matters is that the person gets what they truly need. In the fall of 2021, she rescued a ginger cat from the street, skinny, with an injured paw. She took it to a vet and nursed it back to health. Named her Luna, for the soul. The cat turned out to be smart and affectionate, seeming to know when her owner was sad, always coming to purr in her lap. By her 5th year, Milena had made a name for herself as one of the best students. Her thesis was on the impact of ethnic traditions on personality development. Her academic advisor said, "Milena, you have a rare combination, an analytical mind and intuitive understanding of people. You'll be a great psychologist." Her family was proud. Teodoro would tell neighbors in the evenings, "My Malnita will soon be a certified psychologist. She'll be helping people." Estrella prayed, "Thank you, Lord, for a wise and kind daughter. Let her find true happiness." And as if the mother's prayer had been heard, fate was preparing a new turn. It happened in March 2024. Milena was sitting in her room, preparing for her thesis defense, when the phone rang. The screen read Mom. "Daughter," Estrella's voice was trembling with tears. "Come quickly. Something's wrong with your father." March 2024. The hospital corridors smelled of bleach and other people's pain. Milena ran through the long hallway of the cardiology department, her own heart pounding, healthy, but breaking with fear for her father. Teodoro lay in a 6-bed ward, hooked up to monitors tracing jagged lines of his life. His face was gray, lips bluish, as if even among all the machines he couldn't get enough oxygen. "Daddy," Milena gently took his hand. So cold, so calloused from 30 years of honest labor. "My daughter," Teodoro smiled faintly. "You shouldn't have come. You should be studying." "Hush, Papa. What are the doctors saying?" Dr. Walensky, head of the department, was a man in his 50s, with tired eyes. He spoke bluntly, used to dealing with relatives of critically ill patients. Ischemic heart disease, critical narrowing of the coronary arteries. He needs stenting. Urgently. Without surgery? He shook his head. A month, maybe 2. And with the surgery? Years. Good years. But the cost, the doctor sighed, is 280,000 pesos. The stents are expensive, imported. At home, Estrella paced the kitchen like a wounded bird. Her hands trembled as she brewed tea. "Mama, sit down. Let's talk calmly." "Calmly, Malnita?" Estrella sobbed. "We have 80,000. Where do we get the rest?" 200,000, it's a fortune. We'll take out a loan. Who would give us one? Your father doesn't work anymore, his pension is small, I sew from home. Estrella wiped her eyes with her apron. "No, I'll sew day and night. Take any orders." And she did. From that day on, the sewing machine only fell silent late at night. Estrella took every job, altering old coats, hemming curtains, sewing graduation suits. Her eyes turned red from the strain, her hands shook by evening. "Mama, this isn't right. You'll ruin your health." "What choice do I have, daughter?" "He's your father," her voice broke. Each evening, the family gathered by the icon. The moment felt solemn. Even Abuela Rada came, despite her aching legs. "Lord," she whispered, crossing herself with trembling hands, "don't take him too soon. Give us time to gather the money. You see how hard we're trying." Milena gave the family her entire stipend, 9,000 pesos. She increased her readings, seeing 5 or 6 people a day. Her hands ached from touching so many palms, her head rang from other people's problems, but she couldn't stop. "How much for the reading?" clients would ask. Whatever you can give from the heart. In 2 weeks, a modest sum was collected. The meeting. April. The park was waking from winter. Buds swelled on trees, the air smelled of thawed earth and the first snowdrops. Milena sat on her usual bench by the fountain. It was quiet here. People walked slowly, many stopping. Today's client was difficult, a man around 45, in an expensive suit but with the eyes of a hunted animal. He spoke of business troubles, a divorce, how his children didn't want to see him. "Don't rush your decisions," Milena said, steadying his palm. "See this line? The crisis is temporary. Things will change by summer. And be patient with your children. They love you, they're just angry right now." The man listened closely, nodding. Hope returned to his eyes, the kind Milena lived for. "Thank you, girl. You're probably right. Here, take this," he offered 1,000 pesos. "That's too much. Let's make it 500. Take it, take it. You brought peace to my soul." After he left, Milena was putting the money in her wallet, not noticing someone come too close. Suddenly, her bag with textbooks fell to the ground, books scattering across the path. "Oh, I'm so sorry," said a young, anxious voice. "I'm such a klutz." Milena looked up. In front of her stood a young man around 24, tall, fair-haired, with kind gray eyes. He blushed like a schoolboy as he gathered her books. Personality Psychology, Basics of Counseling, he read the spines. "You're a student?" "Yes, 5th year." Milena took the books from him. "Thank you." "Wait," the guy hesitated. "I have to be honest, I bumped into you on purpose." "What?" "Well, I mean," he blushed even more. "I saw how you were talking to that man. So beautifully, so sincerely. I wanted to meet you, but didn't know how. So I did something stupid." Milena laughed for the first time in weeks. It was a clear, cheerful laugh. "Quite a way to introduce yourself. What if I'd been scared? Then I'd have apologized and walked away. But you weren't scared." He extended his hand. "Timoteo. Timoteo Corvallo." "Milena. Milena Luz." At a cafe near the park, they drank tea and ate pastries. Timoteo told her about himself. He had finished construction college, worked as a sales manager at Construinvest. The pay was decent, 60,000 pesos. He had a car and rented a 1-bedroom apartment. "And you? Are you a fortune teller?" he asked carefully. "Psychologist, almost." Milena stirred her tea. "And the fortune telling?" "Just a side job. I need to help my family." And she told him about her father, his illness, the surgery. She spoke calmly, without tears, but Timoteo could see her hands trembling. 280,000, he repeated thoughtfully. "And how much do you have?" 110,000. "My mom sews day and night, I do readings. But it's not enough. And there's no time, the doctor said the surgery can't be delayed." Timoteo was silent, thinking. Then he said firmly, "I'll give you the money." "What?" Milena couldn't believe it. "You've known me for 2 hours. So what?" "The parents of your future husband need to be healthy," he replied seriously. "Future husband?" Milena laughed, but her heart started beating faster. "Why not? I'm 24, you're about the same." "Time to think about family," Timoteo said, covering her hand with his. "Kidding, of course. But I'll give the money. Tomorrow." Spring of love. The following weeks flew by like a beautiful dream. Every day after class, Milena met Timoteo. They walked through the spring city, talked about everything, books, films, what a real family should be. "You know," he said once as they sat in the same cafe, "I've never met anyone like you. You see through people. You know what they need. And you're kind. My mom taught me that. And my abuela. They say, help people, and God will help you." And your mom, does she tell fortunes too? Rarely. Mostly she sews. But when people ask, Milena paused. Tim, does it bother you that we're half Romany? Why should it? He asked, genuinely surprised. I don't care what blood you have. What matters is your heart. Good news came from the hospital. Teodoro's condition had stabilized. The surgery was scheduled for early May. They had almost raised the needed amount. With Timoteo's help, they reached their goal. Daughter, her father said when Milena came to visit him, tell me about this guy. Is he serious? He's serious, Papa. Then bring him over. If you love him, don't hide it. Life is short, I understand that better than anyone now. At home, Estrella greeted Timoteo cautiously but politely. She set the table, asked about his job and plans. She watched how he looked at her daughter, with tenderness and admiration. He's a good guy, she told Milena after he left. But be careful, daughter. Not everyone is ready to accept our roots. He's in love now. But when he learns the whole truth, Mom, he already knows. He knows we're half Romany. But whether his family accepts us, that's the real question. That evening, Timoteo told Milena about his family. His voice grew somber. I lost my dad when I was 10. Car accident. My mom was alone for a long time, then married Germano Crutello. He's a good man, in a way, but he thinks I'm a failure. Says I went to college instead of university, that I work as a manager, not a boss. And your mom? She agrees with him on everything. Afraid to argue, Timoteo sighed. They want me to marry the daughter of their friends, Elena. Her dad's a prosecutor, her mom's a doctor. A good match, as they say. And what do you think? I think I love you, he said, hugging her. And I don't need anyone else. Milena leaned against his shoulder, but something cold stirred in her chest. Her mother's words echoed in her mind, not everyone is ready to accept our roots. Tim, she said softly, maybe it's better not to tell your family about me just yet. Let's meet them a bit later. Why? He asked, surprised. I want to introduce you to my mom. Let her see how amazing you are. Are you sure? Of course. We'll go on Saturday. My mom will make lunch, you'll get a proper introduction. Milena nodded, but a wave of anxiety tightened in her chest. Something will go wrong. Something will go terribly wrong. A premonition of trouble. The night before meeting Timoteo's parents, Milena drifted in and out of uneasy sleep. Dreams came in fragments, bringing blurry visions, faces twisted in disdain, words that stung worse than slaps, doors that slammed shut forever. In the most vivid dream, she was in an unfamiliar house gleaming with cold metal and marble. A woman in an expensive dress looked at her with disgust. Timoteo stood beside her, head lowered, silent. Silent as his mother spoke cruel words. Silent when Milena reached for him. Silent as she walked alone into the night. Milena woke in a cold sweat, her heart beating like a caged bird. Outside, dawn had just broken, rosy, soft, deceptively peaceful. Luna, she whispered to the ginger cat curled at her feet, what should I do? The cat opened her golden eyes, purred softly, and rubbed against her hand. In that simple gesture was the world's truth, you're loved not for your origins, but for your heart. Timoteo arrived at noon. He saw how pale and anxious she was, and tried to cheer her up. Hey, beautiful, why the long face? It's a celebration today, meeting your future mother-in-law. Tim, Milena took his hand, what if something goes wrong? What could go wrong? He asked, genuinely puzzled. My mom will see how amazing you are and love you, just like I do. What if they don't like that I'm half Romany? Timoteo stopped, turned her to face him. Something flickered in his gray eyes, surprise, hesitation, but his voice was firm. Malnita, I love you, not what others think. Even if they're my parents. And if I have to choose between them and you, I choose you. His words were reassuring, but a knot of unease still tightened in Milena's chest. Before leaving, she stopped by Abuela Rada's. The old woman sat in a chair by the window, knitting socks for the neighbor's grandson. Her hands couldn't stay idle, even at 84. Abuela, I'm going to meet Timoteo's parents. I'm scared. Rada set her knitting aside, cupped Milena's face in her wrinkled hands. Be yourself, child. The truth always finds its way. And remember, we're not worse than others, just different. That's our strength and our beauty. And if they don't accept me, then they don't deserve you. Her eyes sparked with a fire the years hadn't dimmed. You're the daughter of a free people, granddaughter of those who sang to the stars and read fate in palm lines. Carrying that heritage is an honor, not a shame. Abuela Rada crossed herself and blessed her granddaughter. Go, Milena. Whatever happens, happens. But the truth always comes out. In the House of Cold Wealth. The Corvallo house stood in a prestigious neighborhood, 2 stories, columns at the entrance, manicured lawn, expensive cars in the driveway. Everything spoke of status, wealth, and the place in society the owners fiercely guarded. Carmen Corvallo greeted them in the foyer, a well-groomed woman of about 58, dressed in an elegant suit, with a cold smile that didn't reach her eyes. Behind her stood Germano Crutello, a solid man with a heavy gaze and a firm handshake. Mom, Germano, meet Milena, Timoteo said, wrapping his arm around her shoulders. The one I've been telling you about. Very nice to meet you, Carmen extended her hand for a handshake. The touch was cool, formal. Come in, make yourselves comfortable. The living room was stunning in its luxury, leather furniture, a crystal chandelier, paintings in ornate frames. The table was lavishly set, red fish, caviar, fine cheeses. But the air was tense, like before a storm. Sit down, Milena, Carmen gestured to the chair across from her. Timoteo says you're a student. What's your major? Psychology. 5th year, specialist program. I see. And your plans after graduation? I want to work as a family psychologist. Help people understand each other and solve problems. Germano grunted. Psychology. That's trendy nowadays. People used to get by without it. People have always needed help, Milena replied calmly. In the past, they turned to priests or family elders. Now there are professionals. Interesting perspective, Carmen studied Milena closely. And your parents, what do they do? My father's a master plumber at the management company. My mom sews from home and takes orders. Working professions, Germano commented. Understood. There was a tone of condescension in his voice, but Milena remained steady. Respectable professions. My father has helped people for 30 years, fixing water, repairing pipes. Without people like him, no building would stand. Of course, Carmen hurried to agree. And your mother? She only sews? The question sounded odd, as if she were searching for a hidden catch. Milena felt internal tension but answered honestly. Mostly she sews. Sometimes she reads palms for people when asked. Silence fell. Carmen turned pale, Germano frowned. Timoteo glanced between them in confusion. She reads palms? Carmen's voice trembled. Meaning she's a fortune teller? Not exactly a fortune teller. My mom is a seamstress, but she has a gift to see things sometimes. She helps people with advice. And do you do that too? Germano leaned forward, studying Milena like a dangerous animal lurking in the room. Sometimes, when someone truly needs help. I understand, Carmen lowered her gaze. And your family, where are they from originally? Milena straightened. The moment of truth had arrived. My father is local, from a village near the town. And your mother? Half Romani. So you're Romani? Carmen's voice rose sharply. Half. My dad is local, my mom is Romani. But I don't hide my roots. Carmen abruptly stood and paced the room. Germano's gaze bore into Milena with barely concealed disgust. Timoteo sat motionless, jaw clenched. Understood, Carmen finally said. Everything's clear. The collapse of hope. Timoteo, could you come to the kitchen? Carmen's voice was politely tense. Mom, let's talk here, he tried to reply. Kitchen, I said. They left, barely closing the door. Milena overheard every word. You brought a fortune teller into our home, a gypsy. Carmen's voice trembled with rage. Do you understand what you've done? Mom, she's a wonderful girl. Wonderful? She's enchanted you, as all fortune tellers do. Wake up. What will people say? Your career will be ruined, our reputation. And what does that matter? I love her. Love? Germano entered. That's not love, that's delusion. Listen to me, if you marry her, you will get 0 inheritance. And I'll fire you immediately. You can't do that. Oh yes we can, he roared. My company, my money, my rules. Milena rose quietly. Her chest felt stone hard, no pain, no shame, just emptiness. She grabbed her purse and walked to the door. At the threshold she bumped into Timoteo. His face was pale, confused. Milena, please wait. Goodbye, she said softly and walked out. Malnita, wait. Timoteo caught up with her by the gate. Forgive them, they don't understand. I understand, Milena turned around. Tears welled in her eyes, but her voice stayed firm. I understand everything. Let me talk to them, explain. There's nothing to explain, Tim. Everything's already clear. She boarded the bus without looking back. Timoteo stood at the gate, fists clenched, watching the bus pull away, turn the corner, never turning back. Only then did she allow herself to cry. 2 weeks of agony. The next 14 days stretched on like an illness. At home, Timoteo's parents didn't stop talking. Snap out of it, son, Carmen repeated daily. She has bewitched you, like all fortune tellers. What did you see in her? Beauty? There are plenty of beautiful girls. You're young and naive, Germano added. You'll get over it. But the scandal will last a lifetime. Why don't you meet Elena Anderer? His mother pressed. Her father's a prosecutor, mother's a doctor. She's well-educated, well-mannered, a proper match. Timoteo called Milena less and less. Each meeting postponed for some excuse. His voice carried confusion and exhaustion from the conflict. I need time to think, he said one day. Everything's so complicated. What's complicated about choosing between love and prejudice? Milena asked. You don't understand. It's my family. I can't just walk away from them. But you can from me? Timoteo said nothing. Friday evening he came to the dormitory. Face hollow, eyes bereft. Milena understood even before he spoke. I'm sorry, he said quietly. I'm not ready for this. I need time. How much time? She asked. I don't know. Maybe we live separately for a while and then. Then, she turned bitterly. Then you'll marry Elena Anderer and remember me as a pretty mistake of youth. Milena. Go, Tim. Go to your family, your reputation, your comfort. I'll manage somehow. He lingered a minute, opening his mouth as if to speak, but no word came out. He turned and walked to his car. Milena watched through the window as he got in, started the engine, drove off, and didn't look back. Only then she let herself cry. Poisonous rumors. A month without Timoteo felt like a sickness. Milena threw herself into study, thesis writing, exams, final semesters before graduation. But even surrounded by books and lectures, an emptiness haunted her chest, as if someone had ripped out the core of her soul. At the Corvallo household a tense stillness reigned. Timoteo became silent, going to work in silence and remaining quiet at home. His mother's attempts to introduce him to Elena Anderer met with cold indifference. "I don't like how he looks," Carmen would whisper to her husband at night. "What if he returns to that girl?" The hairdresser's gossip buzzed behind them. "Have you heard? Corvallo's son had a romance with a gypsy fortune teller. Would you believe it?" "Oh, come on, I thought he was such a decent boy." "Mom, stop listening to gossip," Timoteo would say wearily whenever Carmen relayed such talk. "What's done is done." But in her son's eyes she saw betrayal. She knew Timoteo had not forgotten, had not let go. And Carmen understood, sooner or later he would return to that girl, regardless of family or reputation. Germano Cruteo fumed for other reasons. The rumors had reached his business circle. At a recent meeting, the co-owner of the construction company, Senor Siemens, hinted pointedly. "I heard, Germano, you've got a little romance in the family? Your son dating someone from, what is it, the ancient profession of fortune-telling?" "Nonsense," Germano waved off, but a shiver ran down his spine. "Just youthful infatuations." Understood. Just know, our clients are conservative folk. Catholic values, traditional families." Siemens shook his head. "If rumors start that our company has Romani roots," he didn't finish, but the meaning was clear. Large orders, multi-million contracts, everything could collapse over gossip about a romance involving his stepson. That evening Germano stood on the balcony smoking, weighing the situation. Simply forbidding Timoteo from seeing the girl wasn't enough. The boy was stubborn, he might marry her out of spite. Something more radical was needed. "This issue needs solving radically," he murmured, shaking ash into the tray. Through his business partner, Germano contacted Captain Drusello of the police. They met in an unremarkable cafe on the outskirts. Pablo Drusello looked weary, 44 years of service, divorced, a student son in need of housing. A police captain's salary didn't stretch far, and loans squeezed like a noose. "Pablo, I have a delicate favor," Germano leaned in. "There's a woman disrupting my family. A Romani. She's doing illegal business, reading palms for money without a license, not paying taxes. And what do you want?" Drusello watched warily. "For her to disappear from our lives. For a long time." Germano placed an envelope on the table. "This is payment for solving the problem." Drusello glanced at the envelope, then at Germano. "Do you understand what you're asking?" "I do. A case can be made up, illegal business, tax evasion. Plenty of statutes to use." The captain was silent, inside something suffocated. His conscience screamed, "This is wrong, this is cowardice." But last night his son had called, neighbors had bought an apartment, while he still crammed in a shared flat. A captain's salary wouldn't buy a flat in this life, or the next. "Any guarantee she's truly guilty?" he croaked. "What guarantee? All those fortune tellers are the same, take money, don't pay taxes. Breaking the law." Drusello took the envelope. His conscience surrendered under pressure. Name, address. Milena Luz. Bolivar Street, 17. Dawn of the verdict. They came at dawn. Milena was awoken by heavy pounding on the door, insistent, menacing. Luna hid under the bed, sensing danger. "Open up, police." Teodoro, still recovering from the operation, barely stood. Estrella wrapped a robe around herself with trembling hands and crossed herself. "Lord, what's happened?" "Search." Captain Drusello entered, followed by 2 officers. Documents on the table. "What's this about?" Milena stood in the doorway of her room, pale, but composed. "Unlicensed business, tax evasion." Drusello avoided her eyes. "Are you conducting fortune-telling without registration?" "I'm a student. I offer advice to people." "For money?" "People sometimes thank me." "So it's business." Drusello nodded to the officers. "Search everything." They turned over cabinets, books, even jars of grain in the kitchen. What were they looking for? Evidence? Money? Or simply wanting to humiliate, to show their power? Estrella wept, clutching her wedding photo to her chest. Abuela Rada stood by the icon, whispering prayers. Lord, protect the innocent. Don't let the villains destroy a pure soul. That's it, pack up, Drusilla commanded. You'll come with us for questioning. Milena understood. It wasn't just an interrogation, it was an arrest. She calmly dressed, packed a change of clothes, a toothbrush, a book. As if preparing for a journey, not prison. Mom, Dad, don't worry, she hugged them. Everything will be okay. God reveals the truth. Daughter, Estrella sobbed. Why? Because we are not what they want us to be, Milena replied softly. In the car, she pulled out her phone and dialed Timoteo. Ring, ring, no answer. She tried again it dropped. He didn't pick up. Behind bars. The detention center greeted her with locked bars, guards shouting, the smell of prison food and others' sweat. Cell number 12, 8 bunks, 7 inmates, and her. Well, newcomer, said a woman in her 40s with tattoos, eyeing her. What are you inside for? Illegal business, Milena replied. Ha, laughed elderly Isabel, imprisoned for shoplifting. A fortune teller, huh? Didn't predict your own jail stay? Others laughed. Milena silently chose the empty bunk, never offering excuses or retorts. She knelt before an improvised icon made of wrappers and quietly prayed. Oh, a believer, Isabel sneered. Pray all you want, maybe God will hear. But over time the laughs faded. Something in the newcomer's calm silenced the cruel tongues. Days passed slowly. Milena read, helped others write letters who couldn't spell, listened to their stories. She didn't complain or cry or whine. Valeria Kirsano, imprisoned for large-scale fraud, was 45, college-educated, had run a travel agency before her arrest. A respected figure, and her words carried weight in the cell. You're weird, she told Milena at the end of the first week. You don't complain or cry, even though your case is ridiculous, fortune-telling's not a crime. What's the point of complaining? Milena stitched a torn pillowcase for another inmate. What is. Aren't you scared? Yes, but fear makes a poor guide. Valeria studied her more closely. Do you really see things? Sometimes I do. Let me try. Milena took her hand, ran a finger over the palm lines. Closed her eyes, listened to her inner voice. In 3 days you'll get good news from your lawyer. Very good. Your case will close soon. Valeria scoffed. Sure. My lawyer says, at least 5 years minimum. In 3 days, Milena repeated confidently. Exactly 3 days later, Valeria's lawyer arrived, excited, his eyes shining. Valeria, the prosecution's key witness, has recanted. He admitted to lying for money. The case is being dropped. You'll be released in a week. Valeria stared in shock at her lawyer, then turned to Milena. How did you? I don't know, Milena answered honestly. I just saw it. Sorry for the way I treated you, sister, Valeria offered her hand. You really do see something. From that day on, things changed in the cell. Milena was no longer mocked. Women came to her for advice. She predicted a letter from a son for one, a reduced sentence for another. And everything came true. She's not just anyone, the women whispered. She's a seer. But Milena prayed every evening, not so much for her own release, but for the strength to endure the trial. And that her parents would not break under the grief. Summoned to the warden. After 2 weeks in custody, a guard approached her. Lose, to the warden. Her heart skipped a beat, tightening with fear. A visit to the warden could mean good news, or very bad. And Milena wasn't expecting good news. Walking down the corridor, anxiety grew in her chest. What now? New charges? Or perhaps release? She stopped at a door marked facility director, took a deep breath. Whatever was behind that door, she would face it. She had to. In the office of power. The warden's office radiated discipline, an oak desk, portraits of leadership, a national flag in the corner. Behind the desk sat a man of about 48, graying dark hair, tired brown eyes. Colonel Borislaw Crespo had led the facility for 15 years, rising from junior lieutenant to colonel. He was known as an honest, fair officer. But his face now bore more than professional sternness. Behind his eyes lurked personal sorrow, the kind that hollows from within when death takes the most precious thing, and life still demands moving forward. 6 months ago, cancer claimed his wife Elena, leaving a gaping void where dreams once lived. Now, his 12-year-old daughter Carolina was all that kept him from falling into despair. "Have a seat, Luz," he nodded toward the chair. Milena sat upright. Even here, in this stark official space, she retained a quiet dignity, not from pride, but from deep awareness of her self-worth. She folded her hands in her lap, met the colonel's gaze, firm but not defiant. "Interesting reports are coming in," Borislaw flipped through a folder. "They say strange things are happening in your cell. The women are calmer, fewer fights, almost no complaints. And it all started when you arrived." "People just want to be heard," Milena said, her voice carrying a wisdom born not of years, but of understanding pain. "When someone feels seen, not as a case file, but as a soul, they begin to heal." Still, the colonel set the papers aside. Something about this young woman made him shed the usual official detachment. "I hear you've been predicting the future." "Sometimes I see things. But only if the person is ready to hear the truth." Milena tilted her head, studying his face. "And the truth isn't always easy." Borislaw flinched inwardly. There was no arrogance in her gaze, no showmanship. Only calm certainty, like someone who'd seen something important and was willing to share it. "And me," he hesitated, as if on the edge of a cliff. "Can you tell me anything?" These past months had been a gauntlet of painful choices: Elena's funeral, sleepless nights by his daughter's bed, grim meetings with doctors speaking of risky heart surgery. 50% success. 50% chance of losing the only thing he had left. "Are you sure you want to know?" Milena's tone held no irony, no superiority. Only a warning: some truths change you forever. Borislaw nodded. What else could he do? Rational thinking had no answers to the one question that haunted him: would Carolina survive? "Give me your hand." The colonel extended his right hand. Her touch was unexpectedly warm, calming, like a mother taking the hand of a frightened child. Milena closed her eyes, traced the lifelines with her finger, and Borislaw felt something strange, as though this young woman were reading the book of his fate written on his skin, page by page. "You lost your wife," Milena said quietly, eyes still closed. Her words fell into the silence like stones into a deep well. "Recently. The pain is still fresh, like an open wound. And your daughter, she's sick. Her heart." Borislaw flinched. Only doctors and the closest family knew that. But it wasn't about the information. Anyone could have done a background check. It was the way she spoke about it, with such tenderness and understanding, as if she had experienced that pain herself. "You're afraid of the surgery. The doctors say the risk is high." But Milena opened her eyes and looked directly at him, and in her gaze the colonel saw something that made his heart beat faster: hope. "The girl will recover. She definitely will. But the surgery mustn't be delayed until autumn. Do it in July. And one more thing," she paused, as if listening to a voice only she could hear: "you'll be happy again. Not soon, but you will." "How?" Borislaw's voice cracked, and he slumped slightly. "How do you know about the timing?" "I told no one. I don't know. I just see it." The colonel turned to the window where a sliver of sky peeked through the bars. Tears welled in his eyes, the first in many months. The conversation about a July surgery had happened only yesterday with the cardiologist, and he hadn't told anyone. But that wasn't what hit hardest. It was the simple fact that, for the first time in 6 months, someone had told him, "You will be happy again." And he believed it. "Thank you," he said hoarsely, still turned away. "You may go." The return of a ghost from the past. Teodoro Luz came to the detention center every day with care packages for his daughter. Doctors had forbidden heavy lifting after his heart surgery, but what father could sit idle when his child was behind bars? Estrella baked Melena's favorite cabbage pies, packed warm clothes, and he carried it all across town, battling shortness of breath and chest pain. He stood in line with other grieving families, holding a bag of food, when he heard a familiar voice. "Don Teodoro." He turned. It was Timoteo Corvallo. But how he had changed. Pale, gaunt, with pain in his eyes. Gone was the confident young man who once sat at their table, speaking of love. "You?" Teodoro didn't know whether to be glad or furious. A wave of anger rose in his chest, but it quickly drowned in pity. "What are you doing here?" "I heard Melena was arrested." Timoteo swallowed hard, and Teodoro noticed his trembling hands. "It's because of me, isn't it? Because of my family?" The old plumber studied the young man for a long time. He wanted to shout, to blame him, to pour out the pain of a father helpless before his child's suffering. But in Timoteo's eyes was such despair, such deep remorse, that his anger gave way to something else, understanding. Understanding that this boy, too, was a victim of his weakness and of others' prejudice. "Maybe so," Teodoro said quietly. "Maybe someone wanted Malnita gone from your life for good. I have to help her. I have to make it right." Timoteo's voice was filled with desperate resolve, and for a moment, Teodoro believed him. "It's too late to make it right, son," his words came heavily. "When she called you, you didn't answer. It hit its mark." Timoteo turned ghostly pale, his lips trembled. He remembered the call that morning. Melena's name flashed on the screen, and without thinking, he hit decline. He had thought she wanted to talk about getting back together. And he needed time to think. "I didn't know it was a cry for help." "Don Teodoro, let me help. I'll find a lawyer. A good one." "Do what you want," Teodoro waved tiredly. "But it's too late. Far too late." That same day, Timoteo went to the detention center and requested a meeting with the warden. Borislav Crespo received him in his office, listening in silence. With every word, the colonel's face grew more impenetrable. "I want to see Melena Luz." I'm her fiancé." "Former fiancé," the colonel corrected coldly, a barely hidden note of mockery in his tone. "Why else haven't you visited her in a month?" Timoteo flushed crimson to his hairline. "We had problems, but now..." "Now it's too late," Borislav said, looking at him with open contempt. "There's an ongoing investigation. No visits allowed. But I can help. I can hire a lawyer, post bail." "Bail isn't an option," the colonel stood, ending the conversation. "Hire a lawyer if your conscience bothers you. But it won't bring back lost time." Timoteo left empty-handed, but the next day, he did hire the best attorney in the city, Rafael Samuelo, a specialist in economic crimes. He spent all his savings and took out a loan, but something had to be done. At least he could try to atone. A nighttime investigation. Late that evening, as the detention center settled into uneasy sleep, Borislav Crespo sat in his office studying Melena Luz's case. Outside, spring rain drummed against the windows, as if demanding a drop of truth be let into this world of cold law. The more he read, the more doubts surfaced. The case was flimsy, its flaws obvious even to the untrained eye. Witness statements were vague, claims that she regularly received money for readings, but with no details, no sums, no dates, no circumstances. No financial records. No complaints from citizens. The tax authorities had filed no charges. What was most troubling was Captain Drusello's behavior. A meticulous investigator by reputation, one who could dwell on the smallest details for weeks, acted hastily and carelessly in this case. It was as if he wanted to close it as quickly as possible and never think about it again. Melena's prediction echoed in Borislav's mind: surgery in July, the daughter will recover. He decided to verify it immediately. He picked up the phone and dialed the cardiothoracic surgeon. Dr. Valinsky? I'd like to schedule my daughter's surgery for July. That's an excellent decision, Colonel, the doctor replied with genuine joy. Our best pediatric heart surgeon, Professor Covels, is available only in July. He's new to our clinic, and after that he'll be going to Europe for permanent work. You won't get another chance like this, trust me. Borislav put down the phone with trembling hands. He didn't know anything about Professor Covels. Milena couldn't know either, yet she had predicted correctly. And if she was right in this... The next day, the colonel summoned the head of the facility's security, Lieutenant Colonel Mendez, a seasoned operative known for digging deep and asking no unnecessary questions. Victor, I need a quiet check on someone. Captain Drusilo. Especially his finances over the past month. Suspecting corruption? Mendez asked, understanding immediately. Suspecting the fabrication of the case, Borislav said, staring out at a patch of sky beyond the bars. If that's true, we're all complicit in injustice. Mendez, a top-tier professional, delivered in 2 days what was needed, transfers into Drusilo's account, phone call logs automatically recorded, meetings in inconspicuous cafes. The connection to Germano Crutillo was as clear as a palm line. Boss, it's all clear, he reported, spreading documents on the desk. Drusilo got paid to fabricate the case. Crutillo is the client. Motives obvious, their family had a problem when the boy got involved with a Romani girl, they needed her out of the way. Is the evidence solid? Unassailable. Transfers, recorded conversations, witnesses ready to testify. Drusilo is done, and so is the client. The hour of reckoning. The next morning Colonel Crespo called in Captain Drusilo. The captain entered appearing composed, but the colonel noticed trembling hands and sweat on his brow. His conscience gnawed within him like a worm. Have a seat, Pablo. Let's talk straight. I'm listening, Colonel. Tell me about the Luz case. Honestly. Drusilo shifted in his chair, avoiding direct eye contact. A routine case. Illegal business, tax evasion. Lies, the colonel said quietly, no anger, no disappointment, only exhaustion with human deceit. We both know that. He opened a folder and spread printed bank statements across the desk like a fan. 150,000 pesos. Transfer from Germano Crutillo to your account. Date, the day before the case against Luz was opened. Care to explain, Pablo? Drusilo's face turned chalk white. I don't know what you mean. More lies. Crespo placed a recorder on the desk. Listen. From the speaker came Drusilo's voice, recorded by surveillance. Guarantees that she's really guilty? And Crutillo's reply. What guarantees? All those fortune tellers are the same. They take money, don't pay taxes. Drusilo wilted as though physically wounded, realizing it was over. His career, reputation, future, all ruined over a few cursed 1,000 pesos. I can explain. You'll explain to the investigator. Crespo stood and the captain saw not rage but something far worse, disappointment. You have two options, confess and name the clients, or be charged with official corruption, abuse of power, and a host of other accusations. If I confess, you get probation, dismissal, but not prison. Drusilo sat quietly as birds sang and May sun shone outside. But his life lay in ruins. His son may never get an apartment, his wife will turn away, colleagues will despise him. All for money wasted in repairs. I'll tell everything, he said softly, his voice sounding like a confession of mortal sin. Everything as it was. The collapse of lies. Weeks later, Drusilo sat before the prosecutor as though condemned to death. His hands trembled as he signed statements, each letter written painfully, but he had no choice. The evidence lay on the desk in a metal block, money transfers, voice recordings, witness testimonies. 15 years of honorable service erased by one act. So, Captain, the prosecutor said with barely concealed contempt, you accepted money from Germano Crutejo to fabricate charges against Milena Luz? Yes, Drusello answered hoarsely. On whose initiative? Crutello's initiative. He said Milena was a problem to his family and asked for her removal. Each word echoed with a painful thud in his chest. His son would never forgive him, his wife would leave him. As for his colleagues, he didn't dare think how they would now see the man they believed to be honest. Did Carmen Corvallo participate in the conspiracy? Yes. She feared her son would return to the Romani girl. Together they decided to solve the problem radically. Behind the prosecutor's office door stood Carmen, trembling, realizing her fears about reputation had led to utter shame. Germano Crutejo had already testified, trying to pin everything on Drusello, but the documents spoke for themselves. Emergence into light. Milena stood at the gates of the detention center, breathing in the air of freedom. The sun seemed brighter, the sky higher, and every sound in the city filled her with a symphony of rebirth. In her hand stood the proof of rehabilitation, official apologies from the prosecutor's office, compensation documents, and the additional 150,000 pesos that Germano was obliged to pay by court order. But the money wasn't what mattered most. What mattered was that truth had won, justice had prevailed, and she could breathe deeply again. Her parents, Teodoro and Estrella, waited at the gates. Her father had grown thinner, older, but his eyes shone with joy so profound that Milena's heart tightened with tenderness. Her mother wept unabashedly, holding her daughter tight as though afraid it might vanish in a moment. My daughter, Estrella whispered, stroking her hair. The Lord heard our prayers. In the car sat Abuelarada. Her legs no longer carried her far, but her eyes sparkled with victory. I knew it, granddaughter. Knew that the truth would come to light. Our family is strong, you can't break us so easily. They gathered at the Church of the Holy Trinity, where Milena's parents had once been married. The family participated in a Thanksgiving service. Padre Giorgio, who had baptized Milena as a baby, blessed her. The Lord tested you, child, and you endured. Now live with a pure heart, and remember, through you he showed others that goodness is stronger than evil. New opportunities. The money, 430,000 pesos, opened doors they had only dared to dream of. Teodoro needed not just stenting, but a full course of treatment at the country's top cardiology clinic. Colonel Borislao Crespo proved himself not only honest but deeply grateful. Upon learning of Milena's father's condition, he personally reached out to his medical connections. Teodoro, he said during a visit one June evening, I have a recommendation for Professor Castillo, the best cardiac surgeon in the country. He agreed to take your case. How much will it cost? Teodoro asked cautiously. We have enough money, Papa, Milena said gently. What's missing, Borislao will cover. Not cover, lend, the colonel corrected. No interest, no repayment terms. It's my gratitude for what your daughter did for my family. The operation was a success. Professor Castillo placed 3 stents and performed angioplasty. Teodoro felt reborn. I'll live another 20 years, he joked from his bed in the private clinic. Might even babysit grandkids. Estrella cried tears of joy. Milena knew this was just the beginning of a new life. An unexpected friendship. Borislao became a frequent visitor to the house on Bolivar Street, not as the head of the detention center, but as a family friend. He helped Teodoro with rehab, chatted with Estrella about their children, and listened to Abuelarada's wise words. You are a good man, Borislao, the old woman said as he helped her rise from her chair. God didn't bring you to our Milena by accident. The colonel blushed like a schoolboy. In this warm, loving home, his wounded soul began to thaw. No ostentation, no luxury furnishings, just peace, which he lost after his wife's death. Estrella cooked traditional Romani dishes, lamb pilaf, herb flatbreads, sweet halva. She taught Borislao gypsy words and shared her people's customs. We Romani value friendship above wealth, she explained. If someone shares bread and salt with us, they become kin. Borislav felt what he had been denied since childhood: true family. A living community, not a formal social unit, where each cares for the other. He offered Teodoro a job as a maintenance technician at the detention center. Good pay, close to home. I don't know how to thank you, Teodoro said, humbled. No thanks needed. Just live happily. The little princess. In July, Carolina visited her father before his surgery. The 12-year-old girl had huge brown eyes and a pale face. She moved cautiously, her breath swift, but in her eyes lived wisdom beyond her years. Milena first met her when Borislav brought her over. Carolina clung to her father, watching the stranger with guarded curiosity. Carolina, this is Milena, explained Borislav. The one I told you about. Did you really predict I would get better? The girl asked outright. I didn't predict. It's what I saw, Milena replied softly, sitting beside her so they were at the same level. Sometimes I see good things in people's futures. And yours is very bright, my little Carolina. And my mom? Will she get better too? The pain in the child's question took Milena's breath away. Borislav turned away, still unable to speak calmly about his wife's death. Your mother is now an angel, Milena said gently. She watches over you from heaven and smiles when you're happy. When you're sad, look at the stars, she's among the brightest. Carolina nodded solemnly, like a little adult. Then unexpectedly asked, Do you know fairy tales? The heart surgery went exactly as Milena had foreseen. Professor Kovals, brought in from Europe just for this case, performed a complex valve replacement. 6 hours stretched on, and Milena sat by the colonel's side, holding his hand. Everything will be all right, she repeated. I saw it. And indeed, Carolina awoke from anesthesia, smiled at her father, and the first thing she asked was, Papa, where is Aunt Mila? Aunt Mila? Borislav was surprised. Yes. She read me stories when I was scared of the surgery. She's kind. Can I call her Aunt Mila? Borislav looked at Milena, and in his eyes she saw what she feared and longed for: gratitude, affection, or perhaps something more. The decisive conversation. August was drawing to a close. Carolina was recovering, her cheeks were rosier, she was regaining weight, running in the garden, laughing. The doctors were pleased, and Professor Kovals, before returning to Europe, told Borislav, Your daughter will live a full life, have children, play sports, travel. The illness is behind her for good. One evening, as they sat in the garden of the Lewis home, Borislav, Milena, and the recovering Carolina, Colonel Crespo suddenly spoke. Milena, may I speak with you? Seriously. Carolina played with the cat Luna, Teodoro and Estrella watered the flowers, and Abuelarada dozed in her chair. The evening was warm, quiet, filled with the scent of jasmine and a sense of peace. Of course, Milena replied, her heart skipping a beat. The colonel rose, paced the path as though choosing his words, then stopped and looked at her. I've thought a long time. After everything that happened. After you saved Carolina, helped me believe in the future, he paused, then said, I understand it may be too soon, your husband died 6 months ago, and your daughter is newly recovered. But I can't stay silent any longer. Milena watched him, breath held. She recognized what she already sensed, but had been too afraid to admit. I love you, he said simply. And I want you to be my wife. By the lake where the future is born. The lake at October twilight breathed mist and silence. The water reflected the final hues of sunset, golden, crimson, like molten copper. Here, on an old bench by the water, they spent evenings as a family. Borislav, Milena, Carolina, and sometimes Teodoro with Estrella would come. Here Carolina learned not to fear the depths, and here Borislav told his daughter stories about her mother. Milena, he took her hand, and she felt his fingers tremble. 8 months ago I thought my life was over. After Elena's death and during Carolina's illness, I believed that happiness had left me forever. Pain, an ache that would never fully fade, echoed in his voice. The memory of the woman who gave him a daughter and was taken too soon. But now that pain did not destroy, it purified, like fire that burns away the past to make way for something new. I was afraid to love again, he continued, gazing at the swans on the water. I was afraid of betraying her memory. Afraid that if I opened my heart, I would face loss again. Milena listened, and inside her unfolded that extraordinary process that happens when two people decide to trust each other completely. When only truth remains, no illusions, no attempts to impress, no fear of rejection. And then you appeared. Borislav turned to her, his eyes reflecting the stars. You taught me to believe in miracles again, made my daughter laugh. You showed that goodness is stronger than evil, and love stronger than fear. He dropped to one knee on the damp grass, ignoring his fine suit. In his hand was a small box with a ring, simple, yet beautiful. Be my wife, Milena. Become Carolina's mother, and the mother of our children. Milena looked at this strong man who did not shame to show his vulnerability, and she understood, this was the moment when fate turns toward you. When all the trials, all the pain, all the tears gain meaning because they lead here, to a love that heals and gives hope. She gently cupped his face, kissed his forehead, then bent to kiss his hand. Yes, Borislav. I've been waiting for these words for so long. Preparing for a new life. Carolina saw the news as a personal triumph. The 14-year-old girl, who had learned loss too early, now glowed with happiness. She would have a mom. Not just a new wife for Papa, but a mother. Aunt Mila, no, I mean Mom, she corrected herself, blushing with embarrassment. Can I help pick the dress? The three of them, Milena, Carolina, and Estrella, visited bridal boutiques together. The girl evaluated each style seriously, like an experienced consultant. This one's too fluffy. That one's too plain. But this one is just right. Dad will freak out. Borislav's colleagues respected his choice. Over the months, they had seen how their commander had changed, calmer, kinder, with a smile in his eyes. The uncovering of Drusello's corruption had only strengthened the colonel's reputation as principled and fair. Borislav made the right choice, they said among themselves. She's someone special, and he loves his daughter as his own. Despite her age, Abuela Rada took charge of organizing the Romani part of the wedding. A church wedding is good, granddaughter. But without our traditions, the celebration isn't complete. Borislav must understand, he's not just marrying a girl, he's joining a lineage. 2 rituals, 1 love. The wedding ceremony took place at the Church of the Holy Trinity, the same church where Milena's parents were once married. Borislav insisted on having a church wedding. Truly, before God. So that he blesses our family. At the lake where the future is born. Carolina walked ahead in a bridesmaid's dress, soft pink, with flowers in her hair. She radiated happiness, and congregants in the church beamed at the sight of the girl who had finally gained a family. Padre Giorgio, who had baptized Milena as a baby, spoke with heartfelt warmth. The Lord has tested you, my children, and you have endured. Now walk through life hand in hand, in joy and in sorrow, in sickness and in health. After the wedding ceremony, the celebration moved to the Luz home. Despite her frailty, Abuela Rada performed an ancient Romani ritual. She gently bound the couple's hands with a red ribbon, showered them with rose petals, and sang old songs in her native language. My son, she addressed Borislav in broken Spanish, you are now ours. Milena is your wife, and we are your family. Cherish her, love her, and your children will be joyful. Borislav stood holding his wife's hand and felt that he had truly found family, not merely through marriage, but by entering a community that accepted him as one of their own. The first year of a new world. The countryside house of the Crespo family transformed with Milena's arrival. Chilly rooms filled with warmth, flowers on windowsills, cherished family photographs, the scent of homemade cakes. Luna the cat boldly roamed the new home, while Carolina for the first time in years felt she truly had a place she belonged to. Milena graduated with honors. Her thesis on the ethnopsychology of family dynamics was both timely and heartfelt. Though her advisor recommended postgraduate studies, she chose to go into practice instead. She opened her own family psychology counseling office, combining modern techniques with Romani traditions, sometimes holding a client's hand, reading facial lines, calling upon old-world insight. "Can you really see the future?" clients would ask. "I see possibilities," she replied. "Which ones come true depends on your actions." Carolina thrived in her Lyceum school, consistently among the top students. She dreamed of becoming a pediatric cardiac surgeon, like the doctors who saved her life. At 13, she was already planning to enter medical college after graduation. "Mom, is it true I'll have a little brother or sister?" Carolina asked one evening while they cooked. "Would you like that?" Milena smiled. "Very much. I'll teach them to read and ride a bike." Epilogue, May 2025. A year later, May 2025. The evening terrace of the country house bathed in cool spring air. Carolina prepared to start upper grades and plan her medical future. Borislav sat reading in a chair, Luna curled by the fireplace. Milena stood at the window with her hands on a gently rounded tummy. Married and happy, and most importantly, expecting. The life growing within her symbolized everything they had been through, that good can indeed overcome evil, and love conquers fear. "Borislav," she said without turning, "we'll need to get one more crib." He looked up, momentarily confused, and then realization dawned. He leapt up and twirled her in his arms. "Really? We?" "Yes, my love. We are having a baby." Carolina sprang from the couch in delight. "Hooray! I'm going to have a baby brother or sister. I'll be the best big sister in the world." Luna opened her golden eyes, watched the commotion, and yawned imperiously. She understood everything. The family was growing, and that was perfect. Where are they now? Timoteo works in another city as a construction foreman. He sends brief, formal holiday greetings but has never remarried. Though he regrets lost happiness, his pride prevents apology to Milena. Carmen Corvallo lives alone in the old cottage. Germano left her after the trial. She has aged, become gaunt, often standing by the window looking down the road, regretful, yet too proud to reach out first. Germano Crutillo lost his business. He now works as a basic foreman. He has learned the price of prejudice, but it's too late. Money was spent on fines and lawyers, reputation ruined, and friends gone. Captain Drusello works as a security guard at a supermarket. His son never got an apartment, his wife barely endured the shame. Every day he curses the moment he took the bribe. Wisdom of generations. Abuela Rada passed away peacefully in her sleep. Before dying, she summoned Milena. "See, granddaughter, how God arranges everything. Everyone gets their due. Good always triumphs, if you believe and keep your humanity." Milena stood on the terrace repeating those words in her mind, sensing their profound meaning. Life is not a battle of good against evil, but a continuous choice between them. Each person decides what wins in their own heart. Happiness isn't having everyone accept you, she thought, gazing at the stars. Happiness is finding someone who loves you just as you are. Borislav embraced her from behind, placing his hands on her belly. "What are you thinking about?" "That we traveled a long road to stand right here." "Do you regret anything?" No, Milena smiled. Everything was exactly as it should be, even the pain. It led us to each other. Lights shone in the house. Carolina prepared tea. Luna purred softly somewhere, waiting for dinner. An ordinary evening of an ordinary happy family, and in that simplicity lay their greatest treasure, love that overcomes all.
If you're enjoying it as well, leave a like and subscribe to the channel.